Hello, Jody Raynsford.
Hey,
Hello, listener.
hello, David Hellard. Hello, listener. Of which,
Whoa.
of which there are a lot more over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've got that period in the year where for 2 weeks we get loads of listeners post run show, and
I
then
thought
they
you said
all
that when a podcast stops broadcasting, and people
a
just don't know what to do with themselves on their long runs. I thought that's what you were going to say.
little bit of that as well. But hello, listen, welcome to Bad Boy Running. We are the Wednesday after the National Running Show, which has been well. How was it for you, Mr. Raynsford?
It was good, wasn't it? It felt really different. It felt, um, I mean, I would say it felt really different to the National Running Show South, where we started off with two people at the start of every talk, and slowly built up. But this time was something else. I think there was a lot of pent up demand for it, and like
Yeah,
enthusiasm, and we got some incredible speakers on the stage, and it's really funny because the pictures from previous years pop up on your Facebook. And I remember, and it came flooding back to me. I remember there's a picture I took when we had the first ultrazone stage, and we took a photo with it, and it's tiny. I mean, you look at it again, and it's tiny.
yeah.
And I remember us saying to each other, "What if no one turns up?" Or because we were at least thinking at least we can just get all a few DoBadders to sit on it.
Yeah.
And you look at it now, and it's tiny. And then I look at the videos now, and sort it's weird. It's like the ones that they were kind of packed out. There were the obvious ones,
Yeah.
but I think Reenie's was. I would say that was probably more packed out than any of the others. In terms of the number of people kind of standing round and the engagement with it and everything else like that. But yeah, just the number of people there and the number of people showing up to the talks and everything. It was great.
Yeah, and the issue is with COVID that it just doesn't it wasn't as condensed because people even when full the seats weren't as close. There were gaps and things like that. So yeah, we probably had more people for some of the talks, but it's I guess it's 50 people inside a mini versus 50 people inside a stretch limo. I don't know how that feels. But yeah, some absolute highlights. Well, firstly, if you did go to the show, we had a bar on stage sponsored by Erdinger, who actually pretty cool brand to be working with. I was quite
It was. It's funny, like for all the mick that we've taken out of Erdinger for being a triathlete brand, very early on in the. I was saying, I hope they've not listened to early episodes, but they were great, and actually their grapefruit beer was like an unmitigated hit. Like we were
yeah.
kind of casually walking around with those like beer mugs, and it was great. It looked great, and people coming over, seeing all these people walking around with beer. I just think it just completely it completely added something to the show that they didn't have anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, massively, and they were really game for a laugh because I'd spoken them to in advance and mentioned some of the ideas we had, and they gave us loads of stuff, including those tankards and things to pass out. But we had people, and one thing we did slightly weirdly worked well, but then the timing was maybe slightly off. We had people doing a lap of the entire.
I think that went really well. That went far, far better. I could have seen that, like dying a very, very early death through lack of participation. But
Yeah.
people were up for it.
Yeah, people are up for it, but then we should have done it when we were introducing who we were each time and talking, so they came back on. But then we had this weird thing where we'd use the cheer of the sending them off, and then by the time they came back, we'd be in our first questions of just getting to know the guests, and then we'd be like, "Oh, John's
So
coming
we'd
in one
forgotten about we'd
one
forgotten
point."
about them in like the minute and a half that they were gone. We'd totally forgotten that they were even out there. So when they came back, it'd be like, "Who are you? Like, what are you doing? Why are you running at the running show? Oh yeah, we set you off."
And I mean, I did a lap myself, and it's quite busy at times. But we did have a moment of one of the running show being like, "Please, can you get them not to run in front of the main speaker on the main stage?" So apparently, and oh, this is where you're like, "I didn't think about this through really." This is where apparently there was a mental health panel, and yeah, they kind of tore up across the mental health panel, which probably wasn't the best contrast to get someone with a pint glass making it through, potentially shouting something like "Ultra stage is better." Um, yeah, but I guess you know it's the do-badder way to get things slightly wrong, I'd say.
I would say so. I would say I think that worked really really well, and I think it's definitely something. And there was some very very good times,
Yeah, there
considering
were.
how busy it was.
And what would you say were your highlights of the people who we spoke, or the things that surprised you or were different to what you were
I
expecting?
It's really funny because my entire perception of Scott Jurek really has come about a few
Mm,
documentaries that I've watched, but really it was kind of set when I read Eat and Run, and
yeah,
we talked about this previously, and we talked about it, I think that, and we actually talked about it in that discussion as well, that I had a certain impression of him as to the kind of runner he was, and I didn't understand. I just didn't get him. I didn't get his thought process. I didn't get how he did. And I think even when we were talking, he was alluding to the fact that he was kind of different back then. That he, you know, the way that he kind of talked trash and things like that. And he
yeah,
wasn't kind of talking trash, but he was just he was quite a serious runner, and
yeah.
I felt like, and you know, whereas I read Ultra Marathon Man, I'm like, I totally connect with everything Dean's like, Dean says, stuff like that. You know, I don't have the ability, but
Yeah,
I connect. Whereas him, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get why he's dropping out of races. I don't get what he's thinking. And so my entire perception of him is filtered through that. And I've not listened to him on other podcasts and things like that. I've just seen him in snippets on documentaries where he's supported other people and things like that. And then, so I've always thought, oh, I'm not, I don't know how like BBR he is in terms
yeah,
of like the kind of discussion things I have, but he was great. He was, I mean, I think that was the biggest surprise of everyone. He was just brilliant. And I think our discussion was great. I felt of all of them, that one we could have just gone on for another hour or so,
oh,
quite
at least
easily.
an hour. And a
Yeah,
lot of it, I
because
think, is set by. Do you think when you listen to an audiobook, the voice of the audiobook then determines the personality? Because that to me is what
yeah.
stuff like sometimes. Not, I went into Yorkshire accent then. Sometimes you
Sometimes,
just.
sometimes, now Scott Jurek.
And yeah, it was you know the whole like sometimes you just do things which we didn't even have time to talk about. But
Yeah,
yeah, I had and he came over before and he'd said in a really nice, friendly, like, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm up for a few jokes. You know, I'm up for a bit of a laugh." And he said it in a really nice way, where you thought, "Oh mate, I don't think you've got a clue of how deep this could go. Like, you've just jumped
it's
into
gonna go. We either go incredibly stupid or we make you cry. I don't know. Like what you've got one or the other. We're either going for the Oscar or we're going for some kind of comedy award. It's like you don't know what you're going to get when we start having a conversation. So I think that was a real highlight.
yeah,
And I think a real highlight was how kind of engaged everyone was, how engaged everyone was on the stand and everything. I think all the book signing stuff worked really really well. Another highlight, which I just think was funny, was we had so now we've been around for a few years, and obviously people that are at the show, they're obviously coming over and they're seeing us there with all these people. And they must be thinking, oh my God, like, how are they attracting crowds like this? So we get a lot of people coming up to us and go, oh, we want to speak to you about partnerships, which normally means they don't want to pay for anything. Or we want to speak to you about sponsorships. And literally every conversation went like this. Oh, we're interested, maybe, do you do sponsorship? Have you got an advertising pack and stuff like that? And so I start talking about it. I'm going, yeah, well, we don't have a huge amount of advertising, and we need to make sure that we're up for the different things that we're
yeah,
doing, and we're really
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like picky. And then I go, have you listened to the podcast? And I go, oh, no, haven't had a chance to listen to it. And I'm like, oh, there literally is no point in us continuing this conversation until you listen to it, because I'm not sure that this is the advertising for you. If you,
Yeah,
and so that was it. So it's just constantly having that conversation of like, yeah, we've not listened to the podcast. And but I think more this time more than anything, because we were really hot on social media, and especially on like the Instagram account, we were filming actually on the stage when it was happening. We got some snippets and stuff like that. I think we've engaged a lot more people, and we've had just a massive influx of followers, a massive influx of people into the group. So if you're in the group, make sure that you kind of make people feel welcome. People listening to the podcast for the first time, lots of different bits of merch. The fucking mug's selling, thank God for that. Worried about that. But I do think we have a different show, though. I think your experience of the show is a very different experience from my experience of the show.
Oh, do you think so? In what respect?
Absolutely. Well, it was the comment that you made where you go,
because you didn't have to listen to your snoring. Is that what you mean?
Oh my God, yeah. I did apologise to David in advance. David had to get another room because my snoring is so bad, which is why I'm going to be divorced in a week. No, but yeah, I think we have very different shows. So it was just that comment you said where you went, oh, the problem is, like, every time you go to the toilet, you get people stopping you, wanting to take photos, wanting to say hi, wanting to do that. I was thinking, oh, yeah, that doesn't happen to me. I just go to the toilet.
Man, that must be an absolute joy. Absolute joy. Well, it's strange because I'm not going to suggest with celebrities or anything, but it gives you, I guess, a glimpse of what it.
I don't think you can suggest I'm in any way a celebrity. I think you are a celebrity.
Well, no, but I mean,
on one point, simply because of that jacket, I didn't realise a jacket could get that much attention.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Often they're like, oh, people are talking to you, and you realise there's nothing to do with the podcast or the stand, or it's just the jacket. They just yeah, it's a lot of the time the fact that it's hard because you're trying to go somewhere or you're short of time, and then you're kind of having conversations with people who you like as people, but you can't really remember much about them, and you're kind of having this quick catch up where you don't want to be rude, but at the same point you're like, oh crap, I've got to be back on stage, and I nearly missed the show start after lunch a couple of times. I love the contrast between people's experiences and even you forget that we interview people on the podcast, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be on the stage similar to how they are on the podcast, because
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, you forget people get nervous and that they've not done stuff like that before, and we're so used to it now, and also you also forget that some people know better than others, and so, but even the different journeys where you've got some people like Beth Pascal, who, like, her journey into running is so not easy, in that she doesn't have to train
it's so
hard.
straightforward, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be any kind of major conflict. She does pretty much everything right. And so it's very difficult for her to go, oh, I've made these mistakes, or I've changed this, or things like that. It's just like, well, I ran it, and everything seemed to go okay.
Yeah.
And then I did this, and then
I started 100 miler
the next year, I decided to do the spine, and I won that. And you're just like, oh. But the thing, I always assume that all these people have spoken before, like the people on stage have spoken before. This is, they've done this many times, stuff like that. And then it like dawns on me that this is probably the biggest event for ultras in the UK, isn't it? On an annual basis, that they're never going to be in front of an audience,
and even potentially globally. There aren't many things where I think you'd more likely get a ultra speaker at a different event. Yeah, that would be potentially bigger, but I can't think.
But they wouldn't be. You wouldn't have a whole load of fans that is specifically there for you and specifically there to see you and things like that. So I assume that they're all used to this kind of environment and they're all used to like doing this. But then you think, well, but where else would they do it? This is it. This is the reason that this stage is so popular and it draws so many people is because this is the big event of the year. And you just forget that when you're there, because to me it's just like this is just an offline version of the podcast.
Continuation of what we've done.
And no one listens to that. So like we're drawing a different crowd, but we're not. And so it's I think it's a completely different experience. And I think if you come along, because I think you have to assume that the people that are there, that are drawn there for that person, have some pre-existing knowledge. So like,
Yeah.
it's not like on the podcast where we can go, oh, let's go all the way back and things like that. So you have to assume
Yeah.
that there is some pre-existing knowledge, and you want to try and get something different. You have to hit the smash hits. You've got to do, the greatest hits. You've got to talk
Yeah.
about the things that you want to associate. People want to hear about, even if it's something they've heard a million times, but they want to hear them say it or talk about it, or they want to feel like they're in on they know the story as well, so you want to feel that they're in on the story. And I think those are the important things that you've got to hit. But I think and the thing is, the questions were good as well. Really, really good questions. Like I think we struggled a little bit at the Run Show South because there weren't that many people, which but we still got some decent questions. But I think that's where it kind of people feel much more open, and definitely much more open about talking about things like menopause. Was definitely through Reenie's thing. Like people were standing up and talking about their own experience and which I thought worked really, really well. Which I don't necessarily think you'd have had a few years ago. Mainly because it probably didn't put on that kind of events weren't putting on those kind of talks because they didn't think there was that people wanted to discuss that kind of stuff.
I think Reenie is a beacon for those topics now, just because there are so few people out there who are discussing it. But
you have to feel safe. But you have to feel safe. You have to feel kind of safe in that environment, don't you?
Yeah,
I think it's very different. Very different turning up when there's someone on stage who you're not 100% sure about.
Yeah.
And then standing up and asking about something. I think if it's someone on stage who you totally trust, but you want their take on it, I think that fundamentally changes, that whole experience. And I think that getting, the more you kind of get Reenie back to do that kind of thing, the more that'll grow and people will feel more comfortable.
Were there any kind of products you saw, any new things that you were like, I don't know, thought of that, or this is not going to work, or
the thing is, we never really experienced the show. Like we don't experience it as a runner because we just don't have time. I forget that there's no other stage has basically the same kind of people presenting for like solidly as we do. So when I'm off the stage, I'm like either over with the rest of the DoBadders and stuff, like in the shop and things like that, or going to the loo or trying to get something to eat, and it just doesn't see that there's no time to walk around. So I have no real clue as to what else is there.
Yeah.
So I just not experience it as a guest. Did you see anything?
Well, I got around because I was always desperately charging across to the what they call the VIP area, which is basically
free coffee, a
few table with a tea and coffee. But I was always charging over there to get a cup of tea, so I'd see people on the way. But it always does. It amazes me how many gels there are. That's the thing. That is, I just don't know. Well, I'd love to have a survey of all gel makers that were new in the last 5 years to be, why are you doing this? Like, and why do you think why is it different? Why do you think it will work? Because it just seems to be, I can't think of many other products where you get so many people just doing the same thing.
Yeah. One thing I think is it's amazing that there's loads of stuff like that. And I don't know whether I missed it or anything. And I thought because I had this in my mind, I'd see more of it. But people talking about like foot health and podiatry and all that kind of stuff that we talked about, I was thinking, oh, that's got to be a major area, like barefoot shoes and things like that and stuff like that. And I didn't see any of that. I'm sure there must have been some people there, but it feels as though the balance of what is important. Like, I'm not saying gels aren't important. Gels, are going to be, their nutrition, they're part of like the experience and stuff like that. But like, considering if I would talk about if there's two things that we've had the most amount of feedback on of anything we have, it's first, it's Tim Noakes, so they should get Tim Noakes in, and then podiatry and the experiences with podiatry, and you just think, well, why is there not more stuff there dealing with it? Why are there not more solutions to that?
I guess it's because you can buy gels from anywhere, you can buy them online, and whereas podiatry, unless you're, because even when we were talking to someone who would come on, who would sponsor our team Innovate OCR, we struggled to find like a physio organisation because there aren't any nationally that would get any advantage of marketing. And so if you're the most amazing podiatrist in Poole, then you're not really going to go to the national running show to tell people. And I, as we found out, talked to Tim in Australia, you know, he doesn't do online sessions. So that's the trouble, is that it's very product based, because everything needs to be online to be worthwhile actually being there as a seller.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feels as though that the areas where people really need help. Yeah, I know that then there's the economics to do with it, but that's given me an idea actually. Which
yeah,
I won't
can you
discuss.
share or?
No, not at this point.
Well,
well, thank you to Mike and the team there, because they are great. They basically let us get on and do, you know, what I like about them is that we now have that relationship where we just don't ask permission for stuff, and they do everything. They give us everything that we kind of ask for, apart from the hot tub. It's still not got the hot tub, but every show we tend closer and closer towards what the vision is that we want, and I think the hot tub will come at some point. They're brilliant. They're great. They give us everything we need, and hopefully they get everything they need from it as well. But I was tempted to go to the outdoor show in March, is it? I think just to experience something as a guest rather than someone actually presenting stuff, so you can feel a bit more relaxed about it.
But DoBadders, if you've got any feedback on guests for next year, let us know, because we're starting to talk to people now, and we'll try and change the lineup quite a lot. One of the issues might be there aren't many really top ultra runners left in the UK who weren't at the show this year.
It was packed, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're hoping they're all going to do new challenges so that we can talk about something different next year. Fingers crossed. But were there any topics or individuals that you want us to chat to? And do you know, what? We only had Scott as a non-British, really. And hopefully next year things will be different. That's what I haven't got a gauge on. Not such a big name, but do people want people from Europe? Do we want some of the... And actually, that was something that was quite fun, having Sanya there, Alexandra, getting it translated and being very PC. They had auto translation of what we were saying being subtitled on the screen.
So it's for accessibility purposes. Purposes to make things, which I mean,
great idea.
An unintended comic effect of, because the auto thing isn't very good.
Yeah, so when Stanya was speaking in Russian, it was trying to figure out what he was saying in English and then just putting up the words up on there. And there was, I think Ali took a photo of it, something like killing prostitutes.
He goes, I buried the prostitute in the forest. I think one of them said.
Yeah, so people were...
Well, maybe it does auto-translate. Maybe he was just tricking us this whole time, and he was just... that's what he was saying. He's from a running podcast in Lithuania where they go, I'm going to go over and I'm going to talk to them in Russian and say the most absurd things to them and see what happens.
It's the equivalent. It's our equivalent over there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The bad boy of a Lithuanian podcast. And but yeah, and that was quite interesting as well. That was quite fun having a translator on stage. So thank you, a lovely translator. And just hearing, I mean, he runs so much. It's insane the amount of training he does, and the fact that he's come on so quickly. I mean, that was. But that's something I want to do. I want to go to Track 100. Were you there for the Salomon session?
I was around. I think I had, because I had like 4 or 5 people who came over to the stand at various points to speak with me because they wanted to talk about sponsorship or partnerships and stuff like that. The usual. The thing is, I don't know what the DoBadders is. The usual. I go up to it and then like 3 or 4 DoBadders go, oh yeah, they were looking for a girl called Jody. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. And then I think, were they actually looking for a girl called Jody and stuff like that? So I was off doing that through some of those sessions. So I'd missed it.
Well, the So Salomon are doing a 24-hour record attempt, mixed relay. So they're having two guys, two girls who are going to be running 24 hours in a track in London. So I was thinking, actually, that sounds quite fun
Yeah.
because we can go to that. Well, I can go to that. So I was wondering whether we should do a Do-Badder event. Ricky Lightfoot will be there, who is super fun, and he likes to go hard off the track as much as on the track. So it's the 3rd and 4th of March.
It's the quiet. It's kind of the quiet types, isn't it? Like you were alluding to that and stuff like that, and I was thinking, oh, does he? He doesn't come across as the type. He does. He comes across as the little bit of like tea and a couple of digestives, kind of relaxing guy. But
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's definitely more Damo style, and so they've said that they're going to be sponsored by a local brewery, and apparently after the track thing finishes, it starts on the Thursday, goes through the night, finishes on the Friday, and then they'll end up at the brewery after a run. So, do we want to do that as a podcast?
Yes.
Do we want to?
Yes, that's a yes.
And also,
If anything that ends with "and we end up in a brewery," we don't really care. Even if it means going and watching cycling, we'll pretend to go and watch the cycling. But if it ends up in a brewery, it's a yes.
And given that it's 24-hour, and I don't know how much sleeping they're doing, and I'm sure by the time he's on his 6th hour, Ricky is going to be hating running around the track. Do we want to dress up in fancy dress and pretend they're hallucinating? Because you're allowed to run around the track with them for a few laps.
Oh my God!
So we really could. Well, we could do things to inspire them to speed up, shall we say?
Dress as cowboys. Dress as cowboys.
Yeah, come on, Ricky, come on. So yeah, that's a potential date for the diary. 3rd and 4th of March. I've got it. I'm gonna head down because it's in. Where's the place in East London on the River Lee? The Olympic track type area. Latest, one of those places. But they said they're going to get in touch with us about it. Another date for the diary Do-Badders is we can say why. I think 21st of April, a long way away. In fact, that is 3 months from now. Wow.
Yeah. What happens then?
Well, that is where my continuation of humiliating television appearances happens.
Oh,
So,
is it Dragon's Den?
yes, apparently
Is this the Dragon's Den episode? Amazing.
the very last episode of the series. So
Save the best to last. There must be so much cash coming your way. Oh my God, there must be so much cash coming your way. This is going to be incredible. I've noticed.
That's not really how it works, is it?
Driving around a Hummer.
Well, the shows don't often. You put your first one, your best first, your best, second best second, third best third to try and get people into it. Then you have like the next best is like the 8th or the 9th to keep people interested. So I think the last episode of the show typically, it's all the guff, isn't it? By then.
No, don't try and play it down. Don't try and play it down.
But
I reckon what normally happens is the last one of the show, they normally focus on a couple, don't they? And they focus on them for a long time. They don't normally get there. Oh, and so tried to turn up selling an inflatable ironing board, but they quickly felt deflated as they were sent packing by the dragons. Like that's the kind of stuff you get in between. And the last one is when they go long and deep.
Well, it's the first and the last of the. They always the bookends of the episode are the ones that.
Did you think you're the last person on that episode?
So potentially, yeah, it could be. So I'll either be I think I'll either be the first or the last person on that episode, which will be, interesting and
exciting.
Yeah. So, but also trying to get media surrounding it. The whole idea is you try and get in a few papers. You amplify the exposure, but
Winchester lad is what's it called? It's normally some shit like local newspaper headline. Yeah. Winchester lad puts his best foot forward on TV. That kind of stuff.
That's the thing. I'll try and do it for. I'll claim Winchester. I'll claim Bath. Claim Newbury. Where else can I claim? I'll
Yeah, I
claim.
know. All of a sudden, all of those local newspapers and things. They're just any kind of connection. The
Finsbury Park,
son
I
of
think I can do.
the Finsbury
Yeah.
Park. Yeah.
Brixton and then Peckham, hopefully by then. So it's going to be a lot of local newspapers that, yeah, very tenuous. But so that is a date for the diary, people. 21st. Put it in. It's going to be.
Do they send you an early link or anything else like that, or do you have to watch it with everyone else?
I mean, come on, think about it. Do you think they would? Where they'll then imagine the amount of feedback they get saying, "Oh, can you just change this? Oh, I didn't." There's no chance. There's no chance.
Yeah,
And
good point,
I
good
think
point.
I think the Dragons get to see it in advance, so
Yeah.
there's a chance that Stephen might liaise to me. I can't say, but there's a chance that. Oh boy! This is why.
Why don't they send it out, David? Why don't they?
So there's a chance. Well, we don't know what we've not said. There's a chance that I'll be told this is what they highlight. This is the core of what they're talking about. So we can, because ideally you want to be able to go to the press and have an article that talks about something specific that happens that is then topical, and they can leverage that. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that happens. So, fun times. But what should we talk about? Some running at least. Some running. So
the whole running show's about running, isn't it? God,
that's
what more
true.
do you want, listener? What more do you want?
That is true. Now this came to my attention. When you have a link for a Daily Mail article and you think, I don't want to click that, even though it seems to be.
Remember the family sent it through.
Indeed.
See, I was right about the Romanians, or something like that.
Yeah. So this is pretty bad, from what I can tell. Although I haven't quite got the context. To do with UK athletics.
Okay.
So UK athletics, there are 3 representatives on the committee who are representatives of the clubs who vote, and they've tried to just sneak in changes to the structure of the way UK athletics works by removing the vote of the 3 club representatives and their status, reducing them to non-voting members.
So explain, who are the club representatives? Why do they have them there?
So we as part of Bad Boy Running Club can be members of members of UKA or England Athletics, which are cool.
England Athletics.
England Athletics. So, and funding for UK Athletics comes from England Athletics and from the government, I believe, and various other schemes. I'd imagine there'll be lottery funding in there as well. And so, but UK Athletics is there to be the governing body for athletics in the UK, which includes a huge number of clubs. And so to have tried to sneak through changes where the clubs are no longer recognised like that, it's so underhand. And so and I don't fully, I'm not massively knowledgeable about the type of decisions UKA make that impact on clubs, but if this is if I've been led to believe what has happened, then whoever is involved in UK athletics who's done this should not be involved in UK athletics anymore. Like, all club members of all running clubs should demand that they resign, because this is like horrific. Imagine that. It would be the equivalent if the government suddenly decided that people couldn't vote for MPs. That it's that level of trying to completely disregard however many club runners in the UK, hundreds of thousands of runners who are the people that really are the most active in this sport, and they're the people that are most important in the sport in my mind, and they're the people who are training and who the athletes come from within, the clubs. So I guess a shout out to Bruno. Bruno's probably the person who knows most about this area of my close buddies. But if there's any do-badders out there who are listening to this, who are more knowledgeable about what has actually happened, because if it is how I've perceived, I think heads should roll. And I think we have enough of a voice to start this process, because it is outrageous if they are truly trying to close down club representation in UK athletics. So please let me know if this is the case. You know, someone who is more knowledgeable than me, and we are happy to start the ball rolling on this. And we are happy to talk to all the other podcasts as well and get them to do the same, and the clubs, because it is outrageous if this has properly happened. So feed back to us, people. Feed back to us. Have you heard about this? Do you know more about it? Is it what you expect?
Oh, intrigue.
Exactly. Now, good news. Good news. Previously we spoke about how running makes you happier than cycling or walking.
Oh, yeah.
Or
yeah.
low-level exercise. 10 minutes of running is enough to change your mood. Amazing. Now, it turns out that one of the studies I've looked at, strenuous exercise could be a more effective treatment for anxiety than drugs, a new study has found, which is pretty good news.
Define
Swedish...
The thing is, that word effective means so much. I mean, because the thing is, anything, I mean, like, I take it that's taking into account the side effects of those drugs and the dependency those drugs create.
No.
And anything else.
No,
it doesn't take that into account. Okay.
Which, when you think
about straight out effects, straight out monitoring effects against, because normally they do. Normally they say, oh, the natural thing isn't as effective, but it doesn't have the side effects of it and of the drugs. See, and so it's never quite as clear cut. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So this one is it's a Swedish study. They took 260 patients with anxiety and split them randomly into groups. One were described low intensity course of exercise over 12 weeks. A second group did a more strenuous version of the same program, which involved 3 sessions a week of cardio and strength training. And a control group did no exercise. When researchers compared the participants' assessment of their own mental state before and afterwards, they found the recruits in the 2 active groups had experienced a significant reduction in symptoms, even when anxiety was chronic compared to the control group. But the more strenuous they'd worked out, the more their symptoms eased. So it's a clear improvement from high anxiety levels to low anxiety levels after 12 weeks. So, I mean, we do have quite a few listeners who struggled with anxiety and friends who've struggled with anxiety from time to time. And so, it seems there is actually exercising is good, but some intense kind of strenuous exercise could be the key to actually removing that anxiety. More good news. So if you're feeling anxious or if you're feeling unhappy, 10 minutes of mid to strenuous running should hopefully help.
I do wonder, because they for health problems specifically, doctors are prescribing things like parkrun, aren't they? So for health issues, parkrun and stuff like that. But I do wonder that how much. What I want to know is it's all fine that they can prescribe that, but with any prescription, how effective is that in terms of actually it being enacted? Because because even with drugs, they're only as effective as people take them, and the more complicated you make if things like if you've got to take antibiotics 5 times a day, or got to take things 5 times a day, the level of successful completion of it drops massively. And I just wonder, we keep hearing like these figures about, prescribing exercise and things like that. But fucking hell, people who are motivated to exercise don't exercise as much as they want. So how do you get someone who has never done exercise or doesn't think about exercise, but they have been asked to do it for health reason? How does that work? What are the levels of effectiveness of actually getting them to achieve it? Because I think this is kind of the same thing. The thing about anxiety is that you go, okay, you're feeling anxious. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to do an activity you've never done before. Go out and run, which if you're overweight, if you feel conscious about yourself, if you do those things, you're going to do, that is going to be the thing. I just wonder how that works in practice. I think it's great and I think it's brilliant and I could totally see that. But how is that delivered and how effective is that? Because when we tell people to make lifestyle changes and we tell people to say, start eating like looking plant-based whole foods and something like that, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen unless they are kind of like in such a problem area. So the practicality of that, do you know what? I'd love to hear from doctors who have prescribed it. We've got loads of doctors who listen to us. Have you prescribed those kind of things, and how effectively do your patients take them up, and what have been the effects and things like that? Because I think the more we hear about that and how effective it's been done, the better. Because I think these things standing in isolation don't necessarily, they sound great, they're all great news, but it's kind of let's hear the results. Let's hear the results of that, because I think that's what matters. Because if other doctors hear results of that and other people hear the results of it, and then more people are likely to be able to kind of move forward with it.
I think particularly, you wouldn't be honest with your doctor if you hadn't done the sessions, would you?
No, of course not. Of course not.
Yeah. And so, whereas the pills, you're right, it's a lot easier. But maybe it's the case of, you kind of transition from pills to exercise, or
it's really hard for someone, for people who have not been on pills to regulate their mood, to say start running like that. There's so many things going on, and so I just love to hear how that happens and how effective that happens. And I'm sure there's going to be loads of examples, but it would be great to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's key, isn't it? And whether in reality, they need to be having NHS personal trainers. Because
can you imagine how bad an NHS personal trainer would be? Can you imagine? I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? We now associate, this is the sad thing, we associate NHS with substandard. When it comes to these lifestyle things, not with anything, not with other stuff, of course, but when it comes to like the things that that I wouldn't say are necessarily they see as core, like cancer treatment, accident emergency, intensive care, paediatric stuff like that. It's the kind of the lifestyle things, the things that I think you're absolutely right. There should be a kind of a provision for that. But
and strangely, it's tying in with that. So this has lifted my mood, because I wasn't in a great mood this morning when I woke up, just because I saw my physio last night as my final thing.
It was disappearing out the door just before my appointment. I just needed help.
Well, because I was speaking to them, because I've lost faith in the podiatrist, really, the NHS podiatrist, and I'm still waiting on an insole that might help my running. So I went to see the physio, who does look at things from a sport point of view, but isn't necessarily an expert in podiatry. And when you have a meeting, and then you're just kind of left a bit empty and just lost. So it's like, there's nothing structurally wrong with my foot that he can see would cause the issue. And so maybe I should, as an interim, revert back to midsole, the old running style I used to have, which I stopped doing because I was going to need orthotics. I was told I needed orthotics from that, which is why I switched. So I'm now in this weird position of like, I don't know what to do. So I've been doing loads of strength training. Have I talked about that?
I'd love to hear what strength training David Hellard style is.
Oh, mate. I mean, I'm massive. I'm surprised you didn't notice that. Do you know what?
I didn't notice that you were ripped, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
So before Christmas, I started going to the gym, and man, weights. They can kill you like no other session, where you just can't uncurl your body after like a certain number of reps. So I've started doing weights where for the first time I did it, I couldn't walk for 3 days properly because my muscles were just so like trounced by it. You know, post-marathon DOMs. It was like that all the way down my legs. Glorious in some ways. But then when I went out with Briggsy, I've been so slow up hills, so bad up hills, just no power. And a week later, just go and you just feel so light. And actually you're just trotting up hills. So like, it's ridiculous how quickly it changes, like your power.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing, and this was off the basis of a few people who've suggested some things, and this is the trouble. I'm taking advice from 50 different sources.
Wait a minute, like you're not taking advice for powerlifting. You're not having like a legs day or an arms day or anything else like that, are you?
No, just legs. I wasn't talking to Janae, who was like, you need to lift 400 kilograms. But yeah, so I've been doing squats, and then these things called Bulgarian deadlifts.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, the Bulgarians are bloody.
I love it. I love they create the Eastern European because you just think, oh fuck, these are gonna be hard.
Oh
these
my
are gonna
word.
Be
The Bulgarian, there must be some kind of sport that the Bulgarians are undefeatable at. They must have the most powerful legs. But you lift, you do if you imagine a deadlift where you lift off the floor, you do that one legged. You have to balance while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And if you think of the exercises you do, just balancing on one leg normally, and you're still brushing your teeth, close your eyes on the one leg to get the balance. Doing that with weights is so hard, but also it not only the concentration, but how much it destroys your leg. So I've been doing those, which are amazing, and I'm now probably 3 weeks into twice a week, and I'm just desperate to get out and run because I want to see how it changes hills, how it changes how I feel power, top end speed, all those things. But because I'm so inflexible, apparently the way I'm doing it is just not going to be good for long term, like back, all these things, because I just can't do the exercises properly with such tight hamstrings, tight everything, tight calves. So now I'm like, right, so I can't really do weights now either. So I'm just I just don't know what to do anymore. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys. There's a happy end to the poddy. Yeah, and I mean, have you got in that before where I just want a plan that I can do, and I started doing the weights as well before I'm back to running and can sort out my foot. I can get strong so that when I come back, and now I'm just lost really. If not, should I be doing midsole running again, even though that might...
What's still hurting?
Well, I've not been running, so my foot would hurt if I ran again. So I'm waiting on insoles for the NHS, but I don't think that's the solution. That's just thing with cushioning. So yeah.
That will. But the thing is that at least that will.
Allow me to do some running.
Yeah, no, exactly. They'll at least get you running, and like Tim said before, that that doesn't necessarily have to mean that that's a permanent thing. That's a temporary thing. So that will remove that, and then you can work on something around that. And then I suppose what else? What about the pain inside your ass? In your groin, wherever that is.
Just have to stop them putting things up there.
Well, you are going on honeymoon for 3 weeks.
I am going on honeymoon.
There's going to be a lot of that, I imagine.
Indeed, and probably on the way back, to make it a
don't bring
a break-even cost trip.
Don't bring a rare tortoise back, a turtle or something back from the Galapagos or something funny like that.
No, I'll eat them while I'm there. But yeah, that issue is something for when I'm running again. So that's on hold while I sort out the foot. So yeah, I just hope I'm going to phone them again now today and just like, where are my insoles? And pressure them when they're obviously pressured and time short. But yeah. So DoBadders, any ideas what I should do? Because right, well, let's think of some good news before we go. Here's some potentially things we could talk about to energize a bit more. I have been emailed by someone because we have a podcast, and they said, do you want to use this technology? And I don't know whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. It's a bad idea for Nick because he's going to have to edit like a motherfucker, an F-bomb, a mother F-bomb if we do this. But there now is a link where you can press this link. It loads up in your browser a place that you can record a message for Bad Boy Running, and we then receive your audio. So do we want to have listener questions? Do we want to play listener feedback, DoBadders feedback on the show? Or is this just going to be...
I think that works. I think that would have worked really well for some of the things that people wanted to say after the Tim Noakes episode. I think that people would have probably preferred to say it in person, recorded, than they would have done like maybe we'll read their stuff out, but you probably hear that better. So I think we give it a try. We give it a bash.
Okay. Now the challenge is, and this is where I know the DoBadders way, so it's just probably not going to work because people are going to be funny, and then it just will run out. The challenge is there's a free one where you can get up to, I think, 60 messages a month. And that should be fine for the purposes of the podcast. But knowing the DoBadders, they'll just ruin that. And so no one can leave a message. So the real request is if we do this, DoBadders, as funny as I know you think you're being by leaving loads of like hundreds of weird crap messages, actually, we're just going to stop it if we do that because we won't be able to use anything because we'll run out of our minutes very quickly. So please, leave feedback, and it can be funny feedback, but leave feedback that you think we will actually use on the podcast because we don't want to.
I love to think that warning is going to have some kind of effect, but I think it's just going to galvanise people now, knowing that there's a limit to the numbers, and so
yeah, and then
just got someone going vest for like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I mean you can do that, and then we just won't do it, and you'll just waste loads of our time, and it will stop the podcast being more interactive and fun. So yeah, you can do that, but please don't, because we just won't find it very funny, really. Think of something witty to say that's in context to what we've been saying, and then we'll include it. That's better. We should have more faith in the DoBadders, shouldn't we?
It's always a few. It's always a select few. It's always a select few.
Indeed.
But it's always the usual suspects. We know who you are.
So I will post that in the group, that link, and I won't read it out here because it's got lots of letters and numbers and it's not particularly friendly. But yeah, you just go on it, you hold down record, and then you leave your message up to a minute. And so feedback, suggestions, stuff like that, let us know. And if it's interesting, funny, in context, we'll read it. We'll play it out on the podcast. Well, I'm going to be off for quite a while now.
So don't break the illusion. Don't break the illusion. No, you would be off for quite a while. Actually, by the time this comes out, you'll be back and we'll have recorded another episode. So it's to the listener, it's going to feel like it's like a week.
Potentially. So we've still got. Well, what have we got coming up? We've got the Science of Sleep coming up with Shona Halson. That episode's really interesting. She's an expert recommended by Robbie Britton. We've then got the week after. So I think there's so much for you while I'm away. We've got Gene Dykes, who's sub 254. Sorry, he ran a 254 marathon age 70. Then we've got Jim Walmsley coming on. Then we've got I mean that is and we've got Maggie Gutto coming on as well. I mean, so while the bad stuff might not be as frequently, we've got the interviews still. Yeah, there's good stuff rather than bad stuff.
What I liked was a couple of weeks ago, listener David goes, "What's the bad stuff?" All of us went, "What?" Guess what's the bad stuff? I'm like, David, that's what we call the episodes with.
No, it's because of the acronym TBS.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was
and I was like,
TBS? Oh, okay.
yeah. But
Do
DoBadders,
you think we were referring to Anya? We were calling her TBs from now on because we thought because it's our nickname for her. Oh, TB's doing this.
Anya. We love Anya. But DoBadders, we might. There's a chance we'll have a shortage of episodes once we return because we've used all our episodes in the can. So suggest some guests for us to interview. Message me, letters at, or message on Instagram because we'd like to know who and what topics we should be talking about. Get back to us about UK athletics. We want someone who actually knows about this because if it's outrageous if this truly happened. And please do leave us a lovely review, particularly if you're from France. Or we were number one in Ireland recently, and we're number one in Turkey. So we need reviews in those countries, please. That would be amazing.
If you want to join the conversation, edit a poll, do anything like that, and meet all the other new DoBadders who have popped up in the group, make sure you head to Facebook, type in Bad Boy Running Podcast, Answer 3 Questions, and join. We still have plenty of merch after the running show, so if you pick something up, you wanted to pick something up but you weren't at the show, make sure you go to store.badboyrunning.com. If you pick something up and got your size totally wrong, then make sure that you get in touch with Laura and she'll help sort it out.
And if you still have suggestions of who Jody will be cameoing, pretending they are a lookalike on Cameo, we want to know because or myself, if there's someone who I should be as well, let us know and we'll see if we can set those profiles up and potentially make money for the podcast so that we don't have to flog you with much merch to cover all our costs.
Yeah, exactly. Quality. Well, have a good holiday, David. Have a good honeymoon.
Yeah, and I'll see you on the other side.
See you later, man.